Today, students, we are going to learn part 2 of lesson 4 from the General Science textbook for Standard 7, Nutrition in Living Organisms. So come along then. Let's continue with the lesson.
This video was made just for you. Do remember to like, share, and subscribe.
Let's learn more about the process of photosynthesis. Now, plants produce carbohydrates by the process of photosynthesis. Okay, so carbohydrates are made from carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen. Now, proteins are made from carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen and nitrogen. So, how do plants obtain the nitrogen necessary for the synthesis of proteins? Synthesis of proteins means how the proteins are formed. So, air contains gaseous nitrogen, so air has nitrogen, we know that. Okay, but however, plants cannot utilize the gaseous nitrogen. Okay, they only take carbon dioxide. Now it needs to be fixed, that is the nitrogen needs to be fixed. What do you mean by that? That is, it needs to be converted into compounds. The nitrogen, that is the gaseous nitrogen, needs to be converted into compounds, and this is called the fixation of nitrogen. Now fixation of nitrogen occurs by biological and atmospheric methods. Now let's learn about it. Biological fixation of nitrogen. Now, two different types of microorganisms can bring about the biological nitrogen fixation. Okay, so one is the root nodules of leguminous plants contain the rhizobium microorganism. So if you look at the picture alongside, these are the root nodules of the leguminous plants. Okay, and they have this rhizobium microorganism. So they help in fixing. Now let's see, these microorganisms absorb atmospheric nitrogen and convert it into nitrate, a compound. So that is how the that is how the nitrogen is absorbed by the plants. Now microorganisms like azotobacter are present in the soil, and they also convert atmospheric nitrogen into nitrates. Now, do you know that atmospheric fixation of nitrogen? Now, lightning thunderbolts occur in the rainy season. So we know lightning occurs in the form of thunderbolts. Thunder and lightning occur, and this causes the atmospheric nitrogen and oxygen to react with each other to form nitric oxide, and which is again oxidized to form nitrogen dioxide. So the nitrogen dioxide dissolves in rainwater and is converted into nitric acid, which gets added to the soil along with the rainwater. So the acid reacts with different minerals in the soil and convert into salts. So plants use this nitrogen salts for their growth. Now, let's understand the symbiotic nutrition. Now, in some cases, two or more than two different types of plants live together to fulfill their needs of nutrition, protection, and support, etc., with each other's help. Now, this type of nutrition is called the symbiotic nutrition, that is, they help each other. Now, let's see how. Some fungi grow around the roots of some other plants, and these plants supply nutrients to the fungi, and in turn the fungi supplies minerals and water to the plants. So some fungi and algae live together. The fungi provides water, minerals, as well as shelter to the algae, and in return the alga provides food to the fungi. So lichen is an example of symbiosis between algae and fungi. So you can see the picture alongside. This is the picture of the lichen. So here we see that they both the things are helping each other. So this type of nutrition where no they help each other. One supplies the nutrients and the other supplies the minerals. So minerals and water is called the symbiotic nutrition. Now let's learn about the heterotrophic plants. Now, heterotrophic plants do not contain chlorophyll. So, because they do not contain chlorophyll, they are not able to produce their own food. So, how do the heterotrophic plants live? From where do they get their food? Now, have you seen a yellow wire-like lifeless climber plant growing on big trees? What is its name? So, its name is a cuscuta. So, the plants that grow on the body of other plants to obtain food are called the parasitic plants, or for example the Loranthus and Cascuta. So these are the plants that cannot produce their own food because they lack chlorophyll. So in other words, they will depend on the other plants for their nutrients. So these plants are called the parasitic plants, and on which they depend, they are called the host plants. Now, due to the absence of chlorophyll, the Cascuta is completely dependent on the host plant. That is, it cannot produce its own food at all. So hence it is said to be completely parasitic plant. So it depends totally on the host plant. Now you must have also observed loranthans that grow on trees. So these are the pictures of the loranthus plant, and Cascuta are wire-like plants that you see. Now use your brain power. Now, which part of the Loranthus plant carries out photosynthesis? Okay, think about it. We just explained to you. And where do they obtain minerals and water? And why is Loranthus known as a partially parasitic plant? So, think about it and find out from the internet if possible. And to check your answers, you can visit our website at jkacademypro.com. Now, what are insectivorous plants? Now, we have seen how some plants feed on some insects, okay, to obtain nutrients. Now, these insectivorous plants generally grow in soil or water deficient in nitrogen compounds. We have just learned about nitrogen fixation and how nitrogen is very important, okay, for the plants. So, to make carbohydrates. So, they are not able to get the nitrogen. So, therefore, the plant body of Drosera burmani has a flower like appearance and it grows close to the ground. Now, its leaves are attractive pink or red in color with hairs at the margin. Margin means at the edges of the flowers. If you follow the picture that is given alongside, and the droplets of a sticky substance found at the tips of the hairs attract insects. So, insects get attracted to these tiny droplets. Okay, so they think that is the nectar from the flower, and so they get, in order to consume it, to have it, the insects get attracted to it. So, and what happens is these plants will take the insects in. Okay, they will suck the insects, and then that becomes the food for the plants, and that's how they are able to take the nitrogen from these insects. So the scientist Johannes Burman identified the plant in Sri Lanka in 1737, and hence the plant is named after him as Drosera burmani. Okay, so this is the picture. Now use your brain power and think, why does the pitcher plant feed on insects even though it produces food by photosynthesis? Okay, you will have learnt about the pitcher plant and the Venus flytrap and all that in the earlier years, last year and year before last, isn't it? So why does a pitcher plant feed on insects? Think about it. It produces photosynthesis. So why is it still feeding on insects? So to check your answers, you can visit our website at jkacademypro.com. You'll get the link in the description box below. Now, saprophytic plants. Plants which obtain the food from dead and decaying bodies of other organisms are called the saprophytic plants. If you look at the picture, we have seen mushrooms and all that growing on dead and decaying matter. So, those are mushrooms are the best examples of saprophytic plants. Now, various types of fungi like mushrooms and yeast are saprophytes. That is, fungi secrete digestive enzymes on the dead remains to digest or break down the carbon compounds they contain. So the resulting solution is absorbed to obtain the nutrients. So that is how these saprophytic plants, which are not able to produce their food, are able to take the nutrients from the dead and decaying matter of the plants on which they grow. Always remember, food gets spoiled due to some fungi. Okay, now some fungi causes diseases or illness, while some fungi have medicinal properties. So all fungi are not bad. Okay, though there are some fungi who will spoil the food, they will cause disease and illness, but there are fungi that are good. Okay, now yeast and some mushrooms are useful. Yeast is used in fermentation process, that is making bread. So it is used in fermentation process and for making bread. And mushrooms are a rich source of iron and vitamins. So we prepare food items made of mushrooms. So therefore these are some of the fungi which are very useful for us. Now let's learn about the role of nutrition and the effects of their deficiency in on plants. So deficiency means lack of it. If there is deficiency of these nutrients, what will happen? Now nitrogen. Okay, now important compounds of proteins, chlorophyll, and cytoplasm. This is the function of the nitrogen. Now, if there is deficiency, what will happen is that is retarded or stunted growth. That is, the growth will not happen so well. We have seen that plants do not grow so well. Some of the plants, okay, those plants who get good nutrients are able to grow very well. So, if there is deficiency of nitrogen, then there is retarded and stunted growth and yellowing of leaves. So the leaves will lack the good chlorophyll. So they will be yellowing of leaves. Now, what is phosphorus? Now, conversion of light energy into chemical energy. We know that plants take in sunlight. Okay, in the presence of sunlight, because of the sunlight, they are able to convert this light energy from to chemical energy. And what helps it? Phosphorus. Phosphorus helps it. So if there is deficiency of phosphorus, what happens to the plants? Early leaf fall. So the leaves will fall off, late flowering will happen, flowers will not come at the right time, and there will be slow growth of roots. Now let's understand about potassium. So potassium necessary for the metabolic activities. So if there is deficiency of potassium, there will be weak stem, wilting of leaves, again that is drying of the leaves, then failure to produce carbohydrates. Then what about magnesium? they it is used for the production of chlorophyll, and we know chlorophyll is very necessary for the plants to produce their own food. So if there is lack of magnesium, then there will be slow and retarded growth. Again, the growth will not happen very well. Okay, so it will be slow as well as retarded, so it will not grow to its full potential, and there will be again yellowing of leaves. What about iron deficiency? If there is, what does the iron do? Iron is again helpful in the production of chlorophyll, but if there is deficiency of iron, there will be yellowing of leaves. Manganese, it helps in the production of main plant hormones. Okay, so this is what it's manganese is helpful. Again, if there is deficiency of manganese, then there will be retarded growth and spotted leaves. Spotted means you will get all these white or yellow spots on the leaves. Zinc is another mineral, so production of hormones and their intermediates, so retarded growth and yellowing of leaves. So these were the some of the deficiencies and the functions of the various minerals that the leaves needs the leaves in the plants require. Now, observe the plants around you and diagnose the nutrient deficiency, if any. So, now you have learned so much about the nutrition of plants. So, try to observe the various plants, the various trees, look at the leaves, look at the various stems, and see and try to find out if they have any deficiency and what could be the deficiency that is causing the retarded growth, or maybe spotted leaves, or leaves are yellow. So think about it and do your own research and note it down in your notebook. To check your answers to all the textual questions and for the summary, meanings, other question answers, and for free worksheets, visit our website at www.jkacademypro.com. You'll get the link in the description box below. Do remember to like, share, and subscribe. This is end of part 2. For a complete lesson, do watch part 1, 2, and 3. You'll get the link in the description box below.